One of the other comparisons that we have to make in terms of the side lengths within a triangle, or in order to have a triangle, is we have this rule where the side lengths of any two sides added together has to be bigger than the third side. All right. And the reason for that is because if it's not bigger than the third side, then we can't actually make a triangle out of it. All right. Basically, if the two sides don't add up to bigger than the third side, they're not going to be long enough to reach in order to kind of close the figure, to close the shape and create a triangle. And so I've kind of demonstrated that down below here. When you look at this, something like these two sides of the triangle, so when I look at this side and this side, they have to add up to be bigger than this other side right here. And if they don't, what happens is they're not going to come up short. They're not going to be able to connect to form a triangle. For example, in this second one right here, I've drawn the same thing, but I've made the two sides too short. When I look at these guys, they don't add up to be bigger than side XY. And because they don't add up, what happens is as I try to kind of close that triangle, you can almost look at that almost like I'm closing one of those expansion bridges. When I look at something like that, I can't close that because they won't reach. They come up short, all right? And so what happens is the relationship here is that those two sides have to be bigger than that third side when I add them together, okay? And if they're not bigger than that, then I can't make a triangle because they won't be long enough to reach each other in order to complete that triangle, okay? That's the idea here, all right? And so when we look at this from the perspective of determining, hey, could I make a triangle out of these things? I just have to look at this and make sure that any combination of two sides adds up to be bigger than the other side. All right. And so here I want to determine if I can make a triangle with these or if I'm going to come up short. And so what I look at is I look at this and I say, okay, let's add two of these sides together. If I add these two together, it gives me a 10. And that is bigger than the 8, so that works. But then I have to do other combinations. I have to do the other combinations. I have to say, hey, how about the 3 plus the 8? Well, that gives me an 11, which is bigger than the 7, so that works. Okay? And then the last combination I have is this. I have to do the 7 plus the 8, and that adds up to be bigger than the 3. That adds up to a 15. So what happens is no matter which two sides I add together, it's always bigger than the third side that I have, which means I can create a triangle using these three measurements. So yes, for a triangle for these. Okay? And again, if one of them comes up short, it means I can't connect the thing. It's going to look kind of like this second example. All right, so let's take a look at this guy. If I look at this one, if I start kind of adding these together, and I'm going to do them in kind of a weird order, but maybe I'll do like these guys added together. Sorry, let's start with something that's not as obvious. If I did like these guys added together, notice that's 25. That is bigger than this third side, okay? But that has to happen with any two sides that I choose, okay? And maybe I'll do these two sides next. Let me see, those two added together, that's 20. That's bigger than the 10. See, that works, all right? But it has to work for all of them. And what happens when I add these guys together, these two, that gives me a 15, and that's not bigger than the third side. It can't even be equal, all right? It can't be equal, it can't be less, and it has to be greater than, it has to be bigger than that number. And if it comes up short, if it's not bigger than that number, it means that I can't create a triangle out of this. And when you think about it, it makes the most sense when you look at this particular example, because this one comes up just short. If I had a piece that's 15 feet right here, and then I had a piece that's 5 feet, let me draw it above this, and a piece that's 10 feet. See, because they're equal to, if this is 10 and this is 5 and the whole thing's 15, there's no way that I could lower that thing. There's no way that I could connect this in the shape of a triangle, because if I kind of put this thing down here, if I were to move this guy on top of this, well, it would just be a line segment on top of itself. And as soon as I tried to kind of angle these upwards, they would kind of pull apart. All right? And so I can't create a triangle unless I have a little bit extra beyond whatever that third side is. Okay? So adding up any two sides has to be bigger than the third side. It can't be equal to, it can't be less than, it has to be bigger. So no, this one could not make a triangle. Okay?